Hello and welcome to Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. Today, by the time you're watching this, it will be Thursday, which is our interview day. I'm very excited about my guest today. He is a gentleman who I have had the pleasure of being on several group podcasts with now on Comics Division's channel, and who I got to meet in person in Florida at a Geeks and Gamer and Erotic meetup, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm so grateful to him for being patient with me for getting him on the interview schedule. His name is Culture Casino. Some of you are very familiar with him. He's a multi-platform independent creator focusing on pop culture and entertainment, and he gives news from a business perspective. Please welcome Culture.
Hey, thanks for having me, Keri. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
Thanks for being here. And like I said, thanks for being so patient with me.
It's all right.
I love your comfy background. Did you design that?
No, actually, one of the people who I would consider a fan actually created it for me out of the blue. I was like, oh, this is great. And then I got icons and everything out of it. So it's quite lovely.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm punishing the infidels back there. Can you tell?
Oh, I see. In the fireplace.
Yeah.
Nice. All you need is a pipe, like one of
Oh,
Brahma's.
well, yeah. I mean, I tell you what, I'm going to do this real quick. This is my favorite pastime right here.
Nice.
Glass of wine. So there you go. Yeah. See my bunny slippers? Yeah, they're fun.
I do. Yes. I love it.
Anyway, there you are.
Well, thank you for being here on Deprogram. Like I said, many people who follow Deprogram are probably already familiar with you, but for those who might not be, can you tell them a little bit about your channel?
Sure. Yeah. It's weird. I was doing the same thing everybody in my sphere seemed to have been doing, watching people who we all of a sudden found accidentally because we were trying to figure out why we didn't like something or why, all of that. And so I created my channel, Culture Casino, based on the fact that I wanted people to come in where the house always wins. You're not going to lose when you come into my channel because I'm going to, tell you how things are from, a pop culture and entertainment news perspective from a business side of the equation. So it's like, you're not gambling in my casino. The house always wins. When you come in, you are actually part of the staff. You're not gambling. So anyway, it was a goofy idea, but it turned into something real and I've enjoyed it the entire time. But no, I often give opinions on a whole lot of things. Most of my videos are, coming from the world as like kind of trying to analyze things. I'm trying to analyze the things around us that are happening that make no sense. None of us can make sense of the world around us nowadays. And that's intentional. And we talk about that. Of course, we also talk about that on most of the channels I'm on, Comics Division and everywhere else. Like Nick, 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser, who you just interviewed not that long ago. I mean, you've had a great number of the folks from my sphere, my immediate sphere, and on your channel as well. So, and I'm just honored to be here. So I don't really like to talk about myself. So this is
well, this would be good practice for you then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I like getting the stories of people. So, like you said, I've talked to quite a few people from your sphere because I think in pushing back against my old ideology, social justice ideology is what I most often call it, or woke. People know it as woke. There's the political way of doing so, and I think that has importance. But for me, it doesn't have as much importance as the culture, like changing the culture and critiquing the culture and offering new types of content and new types of art. And so interviewing the people who are there on the front lines of changing the culture is something really, I don't know, it's interesting to me. I think it's interesting to the people who watch this channel. So I like to know, like, what got people into this? Like, when did you start your channel and what?
Well, I started to put things together, I think in 2019. I mean, I was really starting to assemble the pieces of why I wasn't connecting with the things that were being created, and everybody can reach back in time and see when they first got broken by the system, right? Where the system really delineated a point in time where they no longer connected with it. When I talk about the system, I'm talking about like everything. I'm talking about pop culture. I'm talking about, the broader entertainment sphere. I'm talking about just news coverage. I mean, there was a certain point in time where all of that just started to leave people. And it always is different for everybody because there's a different point in time at which you become awake, I guess a lot of people say, or whatever kind of pill you want to throw at that conversation. But I started to put it all together in 2019, started talking to the people that I supported because I was a big supporter of a lot of channels financially.
Like which channels? were you watching early on?
Wow, Gary, you know Gary, Neurotic, Ryan Cannell. I'm sure you're
Mhm.
familiar with him. Comics Division, obviously, is one of his very, very vocal supporters, and many others. I mean, I came into the sphere, dumping money into stuff. And of course, if people want to see me regularly in a panel, you can always check out Midnight's Edge. Midnight's Edge is one of the channels
Oh,
I've always
yes.
supported. Because you have great well-informed humans like obviously Andre, who he and I speak the same language. I mean, not I'm not Norwegian, but
English? Okay.
yes, right,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, financial. We speak the same
Right.
financial language, and then, but you have Tom Connors from he's been in the entertainment industry forever. I mean, all the way from radio to video rental
I
to
gotta talk to him sometime. I mean, I've been on panels with him, but I gotta talk to him
yeah.
sometime.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And again, I mean, we have people from the industry that come in and talk to people all the time. I mean, Script Doctor, I mean, does exactly what he says. He doctors scripts. We've had, celebrities that actually are in Hollywood. In fact, again, tangentially, because Midnight Edge has so many different channels, they have contacts across Hollywood. So you get lots of great personalities there, like Chris Gore and
Mhm.
Polly, which otherwise known as the Latino slant. Just all these people that are plugged in. So you're not getting a lot of BS conversation. You're getting a lot of very well informed conversation, and I think that's really important because I can go in and I can be all outraged about something, but I would rather be well informed and talk about it calmly because I think there's too much of that. I don't want to be outraged. I just want to give people information.
Look at
So,
the data, look at the facts.
yeah, yeah,
So, before 2019, before you started your own channel,
yeah.
a lot of people that I've talked to in the past few years, not all of them, but some of them had to go through this period of getting over their fear of sharing their opinions in this cultural climate. Are you one of those people, or did you
Yeah.
have fears about speaking out of what you think about things?
Here, yes, I did, and I'll tell you how it actually started. So, like I said, I was getting things together towards the end of 2019, where I had completely and totally cut off like anything that was mainstream at that point because it was so disingenuous, misrepresenting the information that everybody could observe with their own eyes. And because of the business that I'm in, I was the face of something, and so I had to go back to an older appearance, like you see here, where I've got the long hair and the beard and all that. That's fine. But I knew that I was going to limit my camera appearance if I could to none. So I spent the end of 2019 building an avatar and working with a voice changer and all of that because I had seen some successful channels like Overlord DVD, right, and a few others out there, and I'd seen them and I was like, okay, I could probably do that because first of all, with a moderate voice change and some other stuff, I wouldn't have to appear on camera. So when my first video came out at the beginning or towards the middle, I should say, of January 2020, because I'd spent so much time building my channel before I actually launched it, that I only did like that character for like 2 or 3 things, and one of them was a movie review, right? Which was terrible. I mean, your early content's always garbage. So yeah, but it is. Just don't worry about it. I always tell people, you start talking. Don't worry, you're gonna suck. I mean, I hate to be so blunt, but it's the truth.
At anything. At
Yeah,
anything you do. I'm
yeah,
reminded of that as I told you before we started, my husband and I are sanding, renovating this house and everything, and, like, the first door
yeah.
we sand is there's gouges in the door like, where you're not great at sanding. Yeah, you're not an expert yet.
No, no, and that's the other thing too. It's why I'm inspired and I have been inspired to create other channels, but we'll get to that probably later in the interview. But I'm just saying that um, you're never good at something when you start, and you can't be afraid of failure. This is the other problem that we have in modern culture, and this is a conversation I like to have about that. Um, you can't be afraid of failure. Failure is how you learn. You have to constantly fail. You have to, there was a book written like something like 10,000 days or something like that to be proficient in
Yes.
something or whatnot, right? I can't remember the title of it exactly. I was paraphrasing there, but and I'm like, well, of course, yeah, you have to work hard to be good at something. You don't become a professional, athlete because you identify as one. You have to actually, be talented. You have to deliver. Believe me, I know this. So it's just that was the that was the place I was coming from. So early on, like I said, I was afraid to show my face, and that didn't last long because somebody very brave did the same thing. They hid behind an avatar, a very in probably one of the greatest character creations I think I've seen in the sphere. And I'm outside of like people who are like physically acting like Overlord DVD and such, but Comics Division
Mhm.
I'm glad I get to bring it home because I don't know if I've told him this story personally, but I have mentioned it, I think at least once. And that is he has the strength and to show his face, right?
Yes.
So there,
He wasn't doing so at first, right?
no. He was represented by this really cool cartoon avatar that would change positions, and he added a little affectation to his voice and stuff. And I'm like, because it was beautiful. It was the kind of thing I was like, okay, I like this, and then I kind of created that VTuber personality. But then he revealed his face. I think he did it on Friday Night Tights, as a
Mhm.
matter of fact. And I was like, you know what? I can't be afraid to do this. This guy has as much, if not more, to lose than I do. So here I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there something different about that? The experience
Ooh.
of putting your fate like, "This is who I am, and these are my
Yeah.
opinions," like, coming out from behind the avatar?
Of course, right? You're a little. There's always butterflies like that first like 10 or 15 videos. First of all, I don't know why there is, because let me tell you, you're gonna have like two people watching your stuff. It's gonna be you and your mom. All right, it's gonna be a while before you build your channel, so don't fret it. But no, it adds to something that we also talk about quite a bit, which is authenticity, right?
Mhm.
Being true to yourself. All these things that I think are important. If you're on camera, people can read you, right?
Mhm.
And they can identify if you're feeding them a line, or if you don't really believe in something, which is one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of outrage. If I'm outraged, you will see outrage, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not an outrage guy. So if I'm ginned up over something, I you can tell I care about it, and that's the problem. That's the problem with some of the people that I've seen that haven't exactly grown in this whole conversation, because the audience sees that maybe they're not as invested in what they're talking about as they'd like to portray. Right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's kind of liberating. I mean, I'm sure you would agree,
Yes.
especially when you're crawling out of a hole. I mean, sometimes some of the areas that I'm angry about now wouldn't have upset me 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Everybody grows as a person, but anyway, that was a long-winded answer to
That's
your question.
fine.
Yes.
So before you decided to so in 2019, you started preparing to do
Yeah.
this, and you
Yeah.
get putting aside or getting over any fear you might have about speaking your opinions.
Yeah.
But what about before that? Did you mentioned that some people have, like, this wake up moment or,
Oh, yeah.
red pilling or black pilling or whatever people wanna call it, whatever kind of pilling. Did you have a wake up moment that you refer back to, or what's your outlook, the trajectory of your outlook on culture and politics been?
Well, okay, so I've had many hobbies. I'm a guy, okay, because we'll get strangely fixated on something, right? And I've had many hobbies, and starting in about 2012, I started to abandon some of them because they were completely different. They were differently represented than what I grew up with, and I'm going to speak specifically to comic books. And I think the last time I picked up a comic book and bought it outside of the independent sphere, which obviously I support, but that came out of mainstream, would have been about 2012. But that wasn't a wake up moment. It took me a long time to be fully awake because there were mile markers, there were milestones, whatever you want to
So,
call
was it more like you slowly stopped participating in this hobby or buying
it.
comic books, but you weren't really sure why yet?
Right. Yeah. It was like, this doesn't make sense. Right. So we're going back to 2012. If I look if I look at even broader, there was a lot of stuff that I think I can even go back to 2008 on, to be honest with
Mhm.
you. But politics was starting to leave me. My personal politics were starting to look different. My belief system was the same, but the where I was supposedly aligned was completely completely gone.
Like, you're
Yeah.
standing still and things are moving
Yeah.
around you.
You've seen the meme, right?
Yeah.
The pictographic representation of this. But it's like, okay, so here we are, right? This is where I am because center left, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you talk about political ideology here or not,
I
but
do, yeah.
yeah, I'm center left libertarian. I'm about as libertarian as you get, right? I mean, I'm not in the conservative spirit. I am now, but I didn't. Like I said, yeah.
Well, the conservative sphere
I know.
shifted.
I'm like, what happened? I'm like, all right, and then and at the same time, it was also strange because people that had aligned similarly to me had all of a sudden went extremely the other way, and I'm like, what just happened? like logic and reason like abandoned us all. But and again, I'd like to say it was really quickly, but I would say it was probably over an 8 to 10 year period,
Yeah.
maybe longer. And so yeah, so about 2008, if I look back, I can start to see changes. 2012, I stopped picking up comics. I stopped being engaged fully in television programs and films starting around that period too, where I used to go to see a film regularly, like, once every week, once every other week or whatever, because there was always something interesting and intriguing to come out. And when you move from there and you go a little bit farther along, we all got to the Star Wars stuff. One of the first realizations I had that something was terribly, terribly broken was the first Star Wars film from Disney, the Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. I walked out of that film feeling like, wow, that was very Star Warsy. Again, we hadn't had Star Wars for a while, so that makes a lot of sense. But something wasn't quite sitting right. I was jazzed and everything, and we came out of the theater, and this is always a family experience, and I mean extended family. We all go, we take up a row, it's bananas. So I mean, there's a lot of people brought to the theater, and then we here's money, But anyway, so we went to the theater, and my brother and I, when we were leaving, we were very jazzed, but at the same time, I was like, that was pretty cool. I felt like I've seen this before, and so there was something in the back of our minds. And over the course of a little while, right, and this is one of my brothers, over the course of a little while, I started to click to what some of the problems were, right? And I had become familiar with Mary Sue's and, the type of lack of character development that was. And and then I started to move on from
I know what a Mary Sue is, but just in case anyone's listening who doesn't, can you describe
Mary
Sue?
A Mary Sue is a female, in this case, that is immediately good at everything despite having no training. They have a complete lack of character arc. They fall along the lines of just a particular ideology. And they don't have to grow. They've never experienced a moment of growth in the entire, whatever it is, comic book.
No character development.
No, there is none. Doesn't have to be. You're perfect as you are the very moment you're there. And if there is a little bit of development, and I'm going to use one of their terms, it's micro development. But anyway, no, it's so that I saw as like, that was like that weird moment where it started to make sense. And then I started to see more and more entertainment. And of course, Ghostbusters 2016, who can forget, was a glaring road sign onto the world is clearly broken. And yeah, so if you want to go to them,
pretty amazing how many people I've been lucky to interview in the entertainment or culture space who, when I ask about their wake up moments, these are two of the big ones for people. Star Wars and Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And then I, like I said, and then, by the time I got to the second Star Wars movie, I was already kind of checking out. Right. That's like I said, I used to go religiously to see films, and I used to participate in stuff. And again, I had friends, I still do, that work in entertainment industry. Right. And so I had some other insight that I was getting, reflected back when we would have conversations about what they were working on, and one of my friends runs does lighting and stuff for films and television. I got to be careful with how I identify these people, and I have people inside of, and I can still say this, I have people inside of Disney, friends of mine. They've been there forever. A little bit of history on me. When I was a youth and through high school and my early college, I wanted to be an Imagineer. I had I had a pathway to get there really easily, but this is, again, I have to be careful how I say some of this stuff, but a lot of my friends, especially at one of the jobs I worked at, went on to work in Imagineering. Yeah.
That's at Disney, right? That's what you mean?
Yeah, at Disney. Yeah. And so, because, man, I like haunts. I'm just going to put it that way. So I like haunts. It was one of my hobbies was building haunts. And then.
I thought you said cons, like conventions.
I love cons too, but haunts, HUNTS, haunts. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
like a haunted house?
Yeah. But for like a little bit bigger than that.
Okay.
Like I said, I mean, I don't often talk about this, and I really don't talk about it on my channel, but that again, it's one of those hobbies. And for me, if you know me, serial entrepreneur that I am, all of my hobbies turn into businesses.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know. It doesn't suck the enjoyment out of it at all. Well, a little bit. It kind of takes it like, because you worry about delivery schedules and whatever it is for whatever you're doing. But yeah, it's very strange. But no. But seriously, that second Star Wars film took it out of me. And in talking to some of the people that I know, they started to give me some hints as to why. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and then by then, guess who I'm watching? People in the sphere here who are breaking it down in a way that I started to really digest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So by the time we get to the last Star Wars film, I was checked out, which is crazy because this little kid, well, then I was a little kid. This is an old man now. This old man was a little kid when the first Star Wars film, which we just called Star Wars, came to theaters, right? 1977, right? I was little, itty bitty guy. Still went to see it.
Yeah. It's a shame. What are some of the things that, in your channel, you cover it from a business
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what's happening on the business side of some of these decisions? Like, what are some of the things that's driving the decisions that they're making, like that they're making with Star Wars or these big IPs? Um, do you think it has anything to do anymore with them trying to make something that's going to be successful and popular, or have they just abandoned the bottom line?
Well, you're seeing a shift back towards paying attention to the bottom line right now. We're about to go through steep financial hardship. The small or the concise answer to that would be there was outside influence and money that was available if you're willing to tell a story around a particular ideology, around a particular agenda. That is disappearing. And a lot of the companies that were involved in this were making money in other ways. They were licensing information, products, all kinds of other things out. So they didn't have the same financial emphasis, profit emphasis as they do now or as they had in the past. So
It's becoming more important to them to actually make money and have
yeah.
people like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, you have everybody in our sphere calling out the ideological bent that's coming with everything that we see now in entertainment, in news, and everything else. I mean, and that's the other problem. It's trying to point to people. This is the other reason I do my channel the way I do. I like to lead people down the path. There are some days when I'm doing my my morning weekday show, which is 12 minutes long, where I just do news items. There are some days I will specifically lead one thing into another thing, so you can see how they are all connecting. And I don't really call it out. Some people have observed it and actually have asked me about it. And there are days when I do that very deliberately. But everything's interconnected now, no matter what anybody says, because we aren't really influenced, or we're not really receiving information from more than just a few corporations. People don't realize that your grocery store is, only 13 different corporations for the most part. That's when you go into your grocery store, anything you go in there to buy, there's likely only about 13 corporations participating in providing those goods. In entertainment, it's worse. You have 5 major companies that are providing you with entertainment. And they're trying to consolidate that even more, by the way. So
This is why I'm enjoying, because I live in the middle of nowhere now.
yeah.
And I'm very much enjoying going to one of the little towns near me has a grocery store that's seriously stuck in the 1960s.
Love it.
It looks like, and it's not too far from the grocery that was used in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. It's
Oh,
one of those
really?
things, yeah, with the
Yeah,
old wooden shelves,
I
and
love
there's, like,
that.
one little thing, like, it's not stocked a lot, and you walk in and you feel like I've gone many decades into the past. I love this grocery store,
Well,
like
and it's great, and this is funny because one of my hobbies that I'm actually expanding on right now, which I have yet to make money on, but I will, is doing market gardening, which you would love.
Wait, what is it? Market gardening?
Market gardening, yeah. So in other words, like I will, by the end of, well, the boss is pushing me pretty hard right now. She wants food, so I'm working really hard on greenhouse construction. And in that in one of the greenhouses, I'll be growing about 270 heads of lettuce of different varieties every 6 weeks.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
so that's far more than myself, my immediate family, and extended family is going to be able to consume. So, we have a very nearby market, farmers market, whatever you want to call it, and I will probably once a week, march
Take your stuff
produce over
down
there,
there.
and
That's
that's just the
awesome.
lettuce alone. But that, again, I mean, in part of my journey, and this is, I knew we'd end up talking about the other stuff I was doing,
Yeah.
but part of my journey, because we're all in a journey. This is the other cool thing I love about this sphere. Everybody understands that's where we're coming
Yes.
from. But one of the things I'm working on is another channel that's a DIY channel, because we talked about you have to fail a
Yes.
billion times. Yeah,
Yes.
you have to fail a billion times in order to be successful. So I actually show people how to just do a drywall patch on that channel. Right. And I don't advertise that channel very much right now because there's not a lot of content there, but I've done 8 or 10 videos over there,
I love
and
this.
yeah. And so I want to teach people the whole process. So like right now, like in the backyard, I'm actually immediately behind me. I'm taking the what we have is we have a pretty large back patio off the back of the house. I'm extending that with a freestanding pergola, but it won't be freestanding long because I'm building walls that are made out of redwood and trellis.
Nice.
And then I'm going to wrap the entire back of the house, which will all be one giant patio at that point, in um, geotextile, in greenhouse plastic, whatever you want to call it. At least for this season. Next season, I'll probably go with something more substantial. But and then that'll be another greenhouse location. That's not actually the greenhouses that I'm building. So, but that's what's happening right behind. You can't see it, obviously, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm always like back here. Yeah, no,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, I'm weird though because I like to build things. That's why when you talk about your house, like I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, I'd love to. I offered to. Comics was having difficulty getting a remodel of a portion of his house done, and I'm like, dude, you're a 14-hour drive away. Why don't I just drive over there? I'll bring a bunch of tools and I'll just help you and get this done because your
Dude,
contract sucks.
look, at some point, if we
Yeah,
have an emergency, I'm gonna
yeah.
SOS you.
Yeah, but see, that's the crap I love, right? And fortunately, I have like enough flexibility, and most people can't believe that when I say that with like a day's notice, I can pre-record a bunch of videos, I can get a lot of stuff out. I have a great editor and all that, and I rescued one of my friends not that long ago, and I have a cabin up north that I travel to up on weekends, so I kind of have a studio up
Yeah.
north. Yeah, but
That's fantastic. The DIY stuff, a lot of
it's
people, like you
fun.
said, this is a journey,
Yeah,
and a lot of people seem to be learning about some of the same things around this. It's sort of that collective unconsciousness. Like I know we are, my husband wants to do a greenhouse. Once we
yeah.
get a little further into the house remodel or renovation, and so at some point I can see hitting you up or checking out your DIY channel,
Well,
and yeah.
at the end of next summer, and do you get snow load in your part of the state?
What's snow load?
Snow? Do you get any snow? Do you get
Yeah,
significant
we
snowfall?
get snow.
Significant snowfall?
Not
Like,
significant.
okay, because there are a lot of different like construction methodologies that you can utilize that a will help shed the snow, get it off of the building, and b be engineered properly so it doesn't collapse. Because that's the biggest trick, and is to because that's what a lot of greenhouses in northern climates will fail on snow if they're improperly built. Most people on their first, I'm just going to tell you this, most people on their first greenhouse fail. So
Okay.
just be prepared. I will have built in this backyard alone. I will have built 4 of them by the end of this summer. So yeah.
Which ones failed? Any?
My very first one,
Okay.
through no fault of anything other than I was not diligent in the maintenance inside.
Okay.
And so I like again, I'm fascinated by all different types of growing methodologies. So that was a hydroponic greenhouse, and that it's actually the building's still there. There's nothing in it yet.
Oh,
I'm
I see.
I'm actually rebuilding it and adding to it. But gosh, yeah, like I said, there will on this property there'll be 4 alone. But I built other greenhouses. The one over here, which I think was even the second or third, that one failed because I allowed an eggplant root to clog it all up, and it was self-maintaining for the most part, and I just took it for granted. So I went out there one day, and because that root had just destroyed the drainage for the upper tube that was where the eggplant was, it clogged it so thoroughly that the water just spilled out the top. So none of the plants in the bottom got any
Wow.
water because it just kind of waterfalled
So
out.
many things to learn through failure.
And that's why I always tell people, you can't learn without failing. Don't prevent your kids from failing.
Can
Please
I
let them fail. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you about some of this stuff later.
Yeah. Well,
But
you can always hit me up. I've
okay.
told you that. You can always hit me up.
Well, to get back to
Yeah.
entertainment,
Yeah.
so you talked about, like, kind of what your wake up moment was, and it wasn't really
Yeah.
a moment, it was just,
It was,
which is for most people, coming to understand something that
yeah.
you're noticing, and you started doing your channel,
Mhm.
you got over that fear, or you worked past that, any fear of speaking
Yeah.
your opinion. Have you a lot of some people face consequences or backlash or cancel mobs, or have you faced any consequences
Just
from doing this?
just in a few immediate family members.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sad.
Um, you know that sometimes when your ideology all of a sudden differs from someone else's, or it wasn't all of a sudden. This is the thing. We talked about how, but
Right.
that didn't happen like that. It happened like much slower. And so, in many areas that I used to agree with family, I did, they've moved. I know
Yeah.
I've moved a little, but not much. But they've moved substantially. So
Yeah.
our interactions now are strained
Yeah.
sometimes. It's certain family members, and
I
that's a shame
understand that.
because I mean we're talking about people that um, we grew up in a series of family circumstances where we always pull tighter and tighter together. If you couldn't imagine a more closely knit family, and that came down generationally. I mean, great grandparents, grandparents, keep going. It's like it was families first, families first, families first. So
I
it's
think
really hard to have that kind of strained relationship.
I think one of the natural consequences of any kind of totalitarian ideology, like an us or them kind of ideology,
Mhm.
is to create these fissures and divisions in families so that things are no longer viewed as just like a political difference of opinion, which shouldn't be a big deal, political differences, but they're viewed as like this um, uh, deep difference of way of living or viewing the world.
I Again, I mean, this comes a lot with a lot of identitarianism and all the other things associated with this neo-Marxism, because that's what I believe it is. We're dealing in a neo-Marxist
Yes,
environment.
I agree.
And so, everything that's being done is willful. I
Mhm.
know a lot of people don't want to accept that, but it is.
Yeah.
Um, I just, it's one of the reasons why I approach everything the way I do, Keri. I want to point you to facts and figures and data, and I want to walk you from point A to point B. I want to show you how all the things are connected. And what's happening right now, gaslighting, social engineering, whatever you want to call it, it's all set to divide. In fact, I think they made it much, much easier in this, and I'm not pointing a finger. I'm just going to say the clearest, and this is my perspective on a big picture history. Things started with Dick Morris. Dick Morris was the person that ran the Clinton campaign the first time, right? Everybody knows who he is. He created the politics of division,
Mhm.
and or at least solidified all the strategies. I do that on purpose, but all the strategies to create wedge issues, because everybody's now familiar with wedge issues. If you go back to kind of where a lot of that terminology came from, that was the point in time. And that was a shame. And of course, Dick Morris went on to work with obviously right side of the aisle candidates as well, using the same strategies. But this is the problem. Then it became easier and easier to divide people. Now, one of the reasons that you divide people is to separate them into little groups. You want to create a bunch of little boxes, and then you gather all those boxes as a coalition.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've called out my plight, right? Long-haired, bearded dude. I fit in that box, right? So now I'm aligned with all the long-haired, bearded dudes, and That's great, but my plight is that, and I'm being discriminated against, or I'm being oppressed, or whatever. Now I need to identify more groups, and then I need to pull them into my little group, right? And this is why you end up with 3,000 flags, or excuse me, 3,000 stripes on a flag, because now you're building this coalition. So you're doing it not in one part of society, you're doing it everywhere.
Everywhere.
So yeah,
And you're so right. That's like the new pride flag, which is
I keep going. I'm like, okay,
1,000 stripes.
yeah, well, and honestly, I mean, if you ask some people that are part of a few of those communities how they feel about some of the other things that were recently added, they're like, time out, bro. No, thank you. But they can't get out from under it because, again, you've created that identity. And this is the other thing. They don't want you to have a self-identity. They want to foist an identity upon you.
Yeah.
And they've taken away your self-identification, right? And yet trying to reflect that by saying, no, I identify as a grapefruit. Okay, but, I can tell you're not. It's like, it's very frustrating. But they do that everywhere. So we talked about that particular flag. We can talk about it in other places as well. So now we have a political divide that's tribalized. Right, and you're even further dividing groups and you're doing it to your enemy. So right now, the extreme left side of the equation is saying, well, you have the MAGAs, you have these other groups, and you're dividing them. Right, these are your enemies, and you're using big words that you don't understand. Right, where you're using big words like fascism and things like that, and I'm like, well, you don't really understand fascism, right? It's when the government and business work together to destroy your life, and benefit them. It's the only people that benefits in any of those situations is obviously the leadership, but people don't pay attention to history. And so, when you look at what fascism is, that's why I say we're neo-Marxist, is because, that's an instrument, to get there. So yeah, anyway,
they don't understand a lot of times is you're right. This is why psychology is so interesting to me, like the way that people think and the way that people can be manipulated. Because so often people just repeat things without deeply thinking about it, and it's so easy to. I was living there for so long, where when I was in social justice, where everything was sort of you just unconsciously over time and slowly, because these things happen slowly, you turn off your critical thinking.
Oh yeah,
and you just become this robot almost that repeats what it's told.
Well, and that's actually what happens, right? That's why we came up with the NPC, right? Did you get your download lately? Because that's kind of what's happening. And we're kind of wired to learn by repetition. And in the social psychology stuff and everything that's based around that, like if you don't want to forget something, learn it 3 times. Like if you study the same thing, if you study the same book, the same chapter, whatever, you go through it 3 times, you're likely to uptick about 80% of what's there.
Yeah.
So think about the fact that you're constantly there's a message being driven into you every single day from the mainstream media, right? One of the ones that they did, of course, that's the lie, is the big lie, the big lie, the big lie, the big lie.
Thank you. I was so, and they also, here's the thing about that, like a lot of things, they saw that people who were critical of the mainstream narrative were the ones using the phrase "the big lie" to describe what they saw as potentially happening around them. And so they took it and they inverted it and they threw it back on them and said, no, the big lie is what you guys are saying.
We don't want to get in too deeply into that.
I'm not going there. I'm just going to say, I'm glad you noticed that, because that pissed me off so much. I'm like, they take anything that could hurt the narrative, anything that they view as being dangerous for the narrative, and they turn it the other way around. They project.
Well, they've also taken a lot of Marshall McLuhan's lessons and turned them on their ear and used them for. Marshall McLuhan was a person that kind of understood how to remain in, this is a term called, and I think he invented it, media cool, which meant that you do what Jordan Peterson does. If you observe Jordan Peterson during an interview, he's relaxed, he's sitting back. I'm always engaged. I know that's my fault, is I'm always engaged in conversation. But Jordan Peterson will sit back in an interview in his chair and he'll talk to you and he'll think, he will never accept your premise. Right. But he's not going to attack you. right? He's going to disassemble you from a different way. Being media cool is just your ability to just relax, sit back, and just appear to be the most calm and calming thing on the set, whether it be a television set, a movie set, a debate set, whatever it is. That is a reflection of media cool. There are other properties that go along with it, but Marshall McLuhan wrote about it. You can actually find his book. I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but and it isn't in this library to my left, but I'll have to
I'll look it
I'll
up.
have to dig it out. But I'll send it to you. But I mean, and that you're going back into the 60s and 70s. So and here's the weird thing. Do you know what I learned about Marshall McLuhan and being media cool?
What?
7th grade.
Okay.
So it was interesting because to me at that point in time, I had been considering performance, being in performance art of some kind, which I won't reveal because I'm not even going to get into it. But that was actually something I wanted. I was wanting to do. So I was trying to learn everything I could about media and actors and politicians and all of that. So yeah, it was 7th grade. 7th grade, I
So
learned.
I want to say something though, because you
Yeah.
said you're you're not media cool and you're engaging and everything. I actually jotted down some descriptors about you early in this interview, and I wrote down calm, non-emotional demeanor.
Oh yeah.
You're very media cool. You have a very calm demeanor. You're
It,
not.
it's so funny because I'm fully engaged. Like if you hang out with me in person, and you have, I think more than once. I think I saw you in Dallas too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, yeah. But anyway, most people say, "Dude, you are so chill."
Yeah,
Yeah,
you are.
yeah. They'll
You're
sound
very
very
calming.
small-headed.
You would make a
Yeah.
good in another, life, in an alternate universe, you'd make a good therapist.
Oh yeah. Backstage, I'm going to tell you a story. But anyway,
Okay.
um, the I absolutely value the fact that I can remain unemotional because in my youth I couldn't. Like I said, I really tried to internalize a lot of stuff that I learned early on. I did consider a career in politics in 8th grade, which is when in this country we used to learn we got more polished on civics, right? We don't teach civics in high school and in middle school anymore. So people don't know how government works. People don't never participate in debates. You don't have a lot of people participate in debate, until they get into college, right? So they a lot of early on skills that they should have developed early on, they don't. Does that sound unfamiliar to you or no?
No, it doesn't sound familiar to me.
Okay, all right. So I learned it beyond obviously the Schoolhouse Rock version of how a bill becomes a law, right? And I had classes that basically broke down American government completely so that you understood it. But then I also had a financial education class in high school as well that taught me how to balance a checkbook and move and do my taxes and all those other things.
Where was that when I was going to school?
Okay, well, I'm a little older. I mean, you're just a baby still. I'm an old guy.
Not that much.
But but I had all these opportunities that we don't offer kids anymore. Because we're teaching them other bologna sausage, which is ideologically based. I really wish we would return to our roots so that people could always be successful. Imagine if you had a financial education in your early teen years and you understood, oh crap, this is how credit cards work. This is how credit card interest work. This is how compound interest works. Everybody should know that,
Yeah.
but
It
they don't.
wasn't until my late 30s, early 40s, sometime around there, that someone directed me to I'm blanking on his name now, it starts with a D. It's the financial guy who gives you great advice about, put away $1,000 for emergencies,
To
like,
me, there are many of them.
don't
I
buy on
mean,
credit, buy
yeah,
everything with
yeah.
cash, don't spend money you don't have, and learning that stuff at such an advanced age, I was like, "Why didn't I?" I went to an elite university, but I didn't learn about how to balance a checkbook or how to "Hey, maybe
You,
don't rack up
you,
credit card debt." I learned about, uh, white privilege,
mhm.
and I learned about
I did
toxic
not.
masculinity.
None of those things existed when I went to my higher education. So,
Yeah,
and I went to multiple
crazy.
higher education locations. So,
So let me back up a bit to
yeah.
get back to, we talked a little bit about the last question I was asking you about the
Yeah,
entertainment
sorry.
or like consequences of doing of speaking your mind and being a cultural commentator. What are the positives? What are some positives that you've gained when you look back on, the few years that you've been doing this?
I have expanded my circle of friends tenfold.
Mhm.
I have never ever experienced anything like this. I mean, this is. Oh, you've been to a couple meetups now, or a few.
It's incredible. I don't use that word lightly. It's
Uh,
incredible.
right, and I try not to, be hyperbolic and do things unless it's for a point, right? I try to,
Yeah.
and when it comes to this, incredible's exactly the word, because
Peop
it no matter what, even if you've never seen these people, I only have a screen name to go with, and sometimes it takes me a minute because I'm old. My brain doesn't work as well as it used to, but it takes me a minute to like say, oh my gosh, I know who you are. I see you in my chat. All that, right? And then of the people that I actually know, like you and a few others, like I get to know, when I see them, that's a family member, that's a friend. We pick up and talk about all kinds of stuff. Guys are naturally wired that way. I know maybe you don't want to talk about this between men and women, but guys are
Mhm.
naturally wired to like be away from their buds for a while, right? And then like, within 5 minutes of seeing each other again, it's back to, you just pick up where you left off. I don't know if women are wired that way, but dudes are. So it's
Well,
like,
I'm wired that way. I don't know if that's
yeah,
I don't know if that's common for women or not, but
yeah,
I find it depends on the person. There are people
sure.
who uh when I see them, it could have been 10 years that's passed since we've seen each other in person. And like you said, you just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are
You know,
people that I've known forever that I still feel like I don't know who you are, but other people that you meet, you have that immediate connection. So I think it just depends on the person.
it's so great because I actually went into the room in Florida looking for you in a hat. I knew it wouldn't. I wouldn't be disappointed. Oh, and the boss just loves you, adores you, talks about you.
Aw, I love
So,
that you call her the boss.
yeah, yeah. But here's the
So
funny thing. That's been pretty much for as long as we've been near each other. It's been kind of neat. Just it's a weird thing, I know. But and a lot of people like they'll use derogatory terminology, but it's not the kind of relationship, right? I'm not being, and I hate this word, simping. I'm not simping for the boss. This is it's a endearment and
it
respect.
is.
That's what it is.
And
Yeah.
people have different endearments, and I
Yeah.
love that one.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So friendship. So we're talking about the positives of speaking your mind.
Yeah. Oh
What else?
man.
I always try to give people like some people who even now when I feel like we've come so far in this culture war, but there are still people who maybe they're just waking up or maybe they've woken up a while ago, but they're still constrained by fear. And I like
Mhm.
for them to hear the positives.
Oh wow. I can reach out to somebody that I may only tangentially know, and they're willing to help.
Mhm.
I am constantly being re-informed on my opinion, which makes my argument stronger every time I talk about something, because I get to take away a little piece of whatever it is from somebody else. Even in my personal life and in the business world, right? I don't get to do that because the conversations are very superficial, official, just a conversation about business and whatever else. You can't in the workplace anymore engage in any other form of conversation,
Mhm.
or you end up, well, in corporations you end up in HR, believe me.
Yes.
I left the corporate world 21 years ago for a reason. I didn't want to be there anymore, right? So it's even back then it was hard because you were dealing with HR departments that are not advocates for the employees, they're advocates for the corporation. So, and even back then you had people being accused of stuff they weren't doing. But anyway, here in this sphere, people are much more open. We get to have these conversations. As I mentioned, I get my opinion reinformed. I get new pieces of information. I get a reading list because I know that you do the same thing I do. It's like, okay, I need to get whatever's here. I need to glean the material so that I pull out what Keri learned, because Keri told me about this great book. Terry told me, Keri told me about this great program. Comics tells me all the time about some things. We've got my editor Grant. Grant will tell me stuff. the other people in our sphere, and unfortunately, I know a lot of people's real names in addition to their pseudonyms, their nom de plumes. But I obviously try not to use them in the real world. But there are people that I know that I can reach out to and find out what they know. You know what that
Yeah.
means? Like, yeah, and so I'm constantly learning, which I love to do. I don't know. There's so many great things about doing this.
What about personal development?
It does. It's a sense of purpose. Every single day, I have a new sense of purpose, and I have a lot of sense of purpose in a lot of other areas. But for this, it's a sense of purpose. I get to do what you do. This is purposeful life. You chose to combat something that you were indoctrinated into, and every single day you add more to, and you contribute more to that big purpose. But personal development wise, my technology skills are being resharpened. My video editing, which I used to do way back, a million years ago. That's back. I can do that. Although now I have an editor who does most of my stuff. But there's so I don't even know. I feel like I'm a better listener now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate talking about myself. You've got me to do it way
Good.
but that's true. There is a lot of there's so much personal growth there. I mean, and not only that, observationally, I get to watch other people develop, and I can contribute to that. Whoa, that's amazing! Like if I like we were talking about like DIY stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want nothing. You probably saw me get super jazzed. I want nothing more than to teach people how to do things, right? It's like I paid attention when my grandpa, right, was teaching me how to garden and all that other stuff. I paid attention when one of my other grandpas was teaching me to math, right, engineering and stuff.
Yeah.
I paid attention, and this is weird. I didn't realize this until recently. I paid attention to what my grandma did to keep food, preserve food.
And I wish I had. That's so great.
And so and now, in addition to real butter, which I'm a big believer in, bacon grease has made a return to my regular use because it's free fat.
My grandma used to keep that coffee can
Yep.
right on the gas range. I know they're trying to take our gas ranges down.
That
for
ain't gonna work.
for the bacon drippings.
Right.
So tell me about entertainment, like where you think we're at, culture, entertainment. As I said, I think that we've come a long ways, but I want to hear like, where do you think we're at in this culture war? What are you excited about coming up, or what's
Oh,
happening right now that brings you excitement?
well, we've turned the corner, right? We've turned the corner. We have about a 10-year journey back to where we were.
Mhm.
And I know that's hard to hear. There's a lot of people, that want that to happen way faster. I mean, a lot of us are getting older, and I would like to see it in my lifetime. But we've turned the corner because we've fought as hard as we have. We never should have let it get this far, and that's part of the problem. And that's the same thing with the politics in the United States and in other countries as well. I mean, look to the north and look to the south, and it's not good. But we've turned the corner. We've also started to. We've also started to see results in some places. Entertainment that was written in 2017, 2018, 2019 is still making its way into the marketplace. That's why people don't think there's positive signs of change. Because you're still
right.
seeing, you're still seeing stuff that was written way back then. And I don't think enough people consider that. We're still going to see 2019 politics. We're still going to see 2018 politics. In fact, you're still going to see 2016 politics because there's a show about to drop here in the future. If it ever gets a title, that was just completely aligned with everything, Orange Man bad. Those tropes don't work anymore, and Hollywood's not making any money on those. So that's a win. The general public is educated or becoming more educated about the things that are around us. But turning back to entertainment, You're probably in the next 3 years going to see more consistent family-oriented entertainment that's more traditional.
Mm.
Because you're watching in real time companies having an internal struggle and pivoting some of their stuff back to traditional, this is actual entertainment. But it's hard for them. A lot of the people, and believe me, I know some of them, that used to write good stuff have left the industry. They're
I
not
know
there
some
anymore.
of them too, and
Yeah,
yes, they have left.
yeah.
I
And
know
so,
I know writers who were told, who did their dues, spent their time as a writer's assistant on a
yep,
show,
yep,
and then were told, "Hey, we're gonna skip over you for promotion because 'cause you're a white man."
right,
And "Hey, we're gonna skip over you again. Hey, so sorry, we're gonna skip over you, but the makeup of the writer's room isn't quite right to have you be a writer yet."
right. Yeah, and I've watched other people in the industry in different areas too get passed over. People on the production side, grips and so on and so forth. People that wanted to be, the leaders. You
Yeah.
know,
I didn't mean to
it's
interrupt
hard.
you, though. You
No,
said that
no,
some
it's
of the
fine.
good writers have left.
They've left it. You've seen writers leave. You've seen directors leave, to be honest with you. You've seen a lot of different levels. You have people that are coming in, and this is when we start to talk about a conversation around merit, right? Because we no longer, none of these industries are operating in the real world. They are operating outside of a meritocracy. You aren't getting developed people. You're getting something to meet, again, the divisive checkbox era, and that doesn't work in entertainment. It doesn't work in comedy. It doesn't work in music. It just doesn't work, right? I always, anyway. uh, I feel like I strayed, but when it comes to that, I think you're seeing the shift that you want to see, but it's going to take a long time. And you'll
Mm.
at 3 years from now, there'll be more stuff that you feel is like traditionally entertaining than there was this year or last year and next year. Hollywood's having a hard time. The global crisis thing screwed them,
Mm.
and yet they're still being given money by the governments that and we can get into that another time, but um, they're still getting handouts from government about to deal with some of that. Um, you'll see, I think you'll see Disney, and I've said this in a lot of different places. Disney's going to be the last one to turn around
Why?
because they're clinging so hard onto the ideology. Because Iger is a political animal, and he put in place a bunch of sycophants, lackeys, whatever you want to call them, and then he kind of quasi retired from Disney and left Chapek there. Chapek tried to do the right thing, and turn the politics off in the organization, and he got slapped back so hard for it wasn't even funny. So much so that even after getting his contract renewed, they booted him out the door.
Mm.
Iger said specifically in an interview recently, and I can't remember who covered it most recently here in our sphere, but somebody else grabbed that particular interview, and he's live on stage saying this, that we can't get away from diversity. We just can't lose that or whatever. But he's a political animal. He wanted to be a president of the United States. He is completely aligned with the establishment, and it will be very difficult for Disney to change because of him, right? Then in returning him, it also kept a lot of things very quiet, and I can't really talk about those things right now because
That's okay.
but kept a lot of stuff really really quiet that would have probably come out after Chapek. And right now, there's a lawsuit. I know most people probably aren't aware. There is a major shareholder that's going after Disney, and the right now it's the first lawsuit he's bringing is for a documents and records. He wants internal documents and records for some of the financial decision making that was done in support of agenda and not profit. If he gets
Wow, okay.
those, yeah, if he gets those, this goes big time. You're going to see a massive class action. Lots of investors are going to pile on, and Disney's going to be in big trouble. Not that they aren't already. They're in some major fiscal difficulty right now. That's the nicest way to say it. And a lot of people aren't aware. And, again, look at the largest shareholders of the company. That's the other problem. These entertainment entities themselves are actually held by institutional level investment. So you have, of course, the slightly darkly shaded rock that I won't say here. You have lots of these bigger financial groups like Vanguard and stuff like that, who just decided, we're not necessarily going to follow the agenda on our investment anymore because we see the writing on the wall. And all of that. But like I said, Disney will be the last turnaround. Warner Brothers is already showing you the right direction. Not fully, because again, I mean, all of these people, this is the other thing. This is a big club. I think Carlin said it best. This is a big club and you're not in it. The people that are in it go to places like Sun Valley, and they go to a retreat every year. And they talk about these things, technology and media. People all get together and collude. And yes, that's the right word. Then you have all of your political and other influential leadership around the globe getting together to go to, places like, I don't know if you can cut this if you want to,
yeah.
But like Davos.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I always say, there's a lot of 3 letters in our world. And if we just got rid of the 3 letters, we'd be better off.
Yeah.
But
wait, so you since you mentioned George Carlin,
yeah,
I was going to ask you, do you think if he were still with us today, he would be awake? He would see what was going on around us?
he already, everything that he was railing against has come to pass. He would be called a hypocrite by people like you and me if he wasn't railing against it still.
Yeah.
My perception, and maybe somewhat, it might be wishful, I don't know, would be that he'd be fighting the machine just like he always was.
Nerd rage. He'd be called Nerd Rage.
I'm there right now. It's so funny because I I don't come across like a frothing at the mouth, super duper conservative diet. First of all, because I'm not, but I think it's fairly clear that I am at odds with the establishment on every level now.
Yeah.
I mean, and again,
you can't help but be.
All it is the establishment now, which it bothers me that people don't see that.
The establishment is in the streets with protest signs saying resistance. I mean, that's the world we live in now.
What are you resisting? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Well, hey,
instead of rage against the machine, it's rage for the machine.
Exactly. Well, that's why I was asking, because some of our, artists who, when we were younger, I viewed as being anti-establishment have clearly become a part of it. And so I was just
and some of them have kept their ground. Johnny Rotten and a few others.
Johnny Rotten, yeah.
Yeah. That's funny because a lot of us end up talking about the punk movement from our youth, and
yeah.
Who knew they were based, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending so much time with us today, Culture Casino. Again, for people who want to find you online, check out your channel, which is Pop Culture and Entertainment from a business perspective. Tell people where they can find you and follow you on the various platforms.
Culture Casino on it is what it is everywhere, by the way. So if you just go, you can go to Culture Casino. You can just hit @Culture Casino on YouTube, @Culture Casino on Twitter, @Culture Casino on Minds, @Culture Casino on what's that other Getter, on @Culture Casino on Rumble, @Culture Casino on Odyssey. That's the main channel. The other channels, once I get more content there, I'll feel more comfortable. Because like I said, I run a gaming channel as well that I've only done like one gaming stream on. I used to have a Twitch, but I don't do that anymore.
Well, when you're ready to promote your DIY channel, will you come back and talk to me about that?
Okay. Of course. Anything you need, anytime you want, Keri. I'm at your disposal, dear.
Awesome. So we have those links posted below. So check them out. Go subscribe to Culture Casino. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on Deprogrammed, and I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you to today's sponsor, the Church on the Square of Georgetown, Texas, which happens to be my church. My church is no longer allowed to advertise on Facebook, which is unfortunate because that's how I and a lot of other church members originally found them. they've been told that they violate community standards. There's no details there of what that means, but you guys know the score. Anyway, since they're not allowed to advertise, I'm here to give them a plug. You can find them online at thechurchonthesquare.org. You can also find videos of all the sermons and some other kinds of content on their YouTube page at Church on the Square. You can also join us. If you happen to be in the Georgetown, Texas area, we meet every Sunday at Ken's Guitars, that's Kenz, Ken's Guitars, right on the Georgetown Square. We meet outside, right on the square. Sometimes, if the weather's nice, you might find us there. You might find us outside in front of Ken's. But if you're local, I hope to see you. Thank you.